Welcome to Specific Love. In this video, I'm going to show you how to take all of your paint cans and create an awesome little holder so they're easy access and easy to see which color you need to grab. Let's begin. Now for this project, I'm going to be using a bunch of old scrap wood. I removed this from a large crate I received here in the past few months. I've been taking it apart and using it for different projects. So I'm going to use that wood. If by chance you don't have scrap wood, you can easily pick this up at your local hardware store. I'm going to be using it's 1x6 by 8 foot lengths, and you can just measure out exactly what you need. I first started by cutting down the wood to the needed lengths. The sides were about 41 inches tall, and each of the shelves were cut to 13.5 inches wide. If I would have needed more than 12 short boards, I would have set up a stop block to speed up the process. After cutting all of the wood, I took a hand sander to all of the edges to remove any splinters or burrs. Now for the top and bottom boards, I decided to use 3 pocket screws on each side for their strength and ease of assembly. And I was able to use a corner clamp to hold the boards to my bench at a 90-degree angle to make this process even easier. I next added 3 screws to each side, making sure they were flush with the top and bottom pieces. I then flipped everything over and repeated this process on the other side. Moving on to the shelves, I first test fitted the bottom shelf to make sure the width would work, and then measured out the distance from the bottom to angle this into place. I then added some glue and used my brad nailer to secure it in place. Now to space out the rest of the shelves, I cut down 2 identical pieces from some scrap wood, which would allow me to rest the next shelf on the top of the current one. This allowed me to make sure the distance between each shelf was the same. Now once everything is glued and nailed in place, it's always good to double check. You might need to cut off some of the brad nails that didn't make it thoroughly through. I got one right up here. I then glued in some plugs into each of the pocket holes to smooth out the appearance and to prevent small spiders from making it their new home. Sometimes these can use a little persuasion with a hammer to make them flush. Plus a little sanding with an orbital sander took care of any of the protruding pieces. I also sanded the outside of the entire shelf quickly to remove any rough or sharp edges. I then added a thin layer of gray wood stain to help cover any of the inconsistencies in a color and old markings across the wood. This will also help the colored cap of each can to be spotted easier. Now for the back of this holder, I'm going to be using some pegboard. This is actually a 4x8 sheet that I got at a 70% discount because it has a little dings and dents in it. So make sure you always check out your damaged area in your local hardware store. And I just used my circular saw, some clamps, and some straight pieces of wood to cut out the needed width and length of the backing. And now that I have it stained, you might be able to tell here that the backing is, well, it's not stained, doesn't look very good. But it's going to be covered, and of course, with the pegboard. Now, I have 2 choices here. I can either go with this brown, or I can go with this white. And I'm going to go with the white just because it's going to offset the dark color of the gray, and it'll be a nice little contrast. Now, I have it just sitting here on its side so we can do this a real easy fit. And all I'm going to do is line this up and make sure it is level across and that my cut is accurate. And of course, this does not have to be perfect as long as it is not sticking out from the sides because, well, I mean, it's going to be up against the wall. You're not going to see it anyway. I then grabbed my brad nailer and secured it in place with several along each of the outer framed wood pieces. Now I've designed this holder to fit in a key location in my garage. Between this big storage shelf I have here and our door here that goes to our bathroom downstairs. Now, I have designed this to fit here because I have the studs that hold the door up and studs that are not even 16 inches apart. Normally in walls they're about 16-inch centers, but here they are much closer, so I was able to design this holder to be closer. Please take that into consideration when you're designing yours, that you make sure it is wide enough to hit those studs, but not too wide, but whatever size works for you. I then used an old file cabinet and old storage box to help support the new cabinet in place so I would not have to hold it up in the process of securing it to the wall. I then made sure to check for the levelness and proceeded to secure it in place with 2 screws at the top and 2 screws in the middle. This should be strong enough, but if I see any need in the future, I can just add a few more screws. And it was now time to introduce the paint cans to their new home, which turned out to be much nicer than I was hoping. Now I'm loving how this turned out. It's easy access to get the paints out. You can put the paints back. I can see all the colors that I have. They're up off the floor. I don't have them scattered. And they're easy if I want, hey son, can you please go grab me the red color? He can easily run and find it without having to search for it. Now, this is a great way to store your paints. I hope you can have a chance to make one too. And if you enjoyed this project, make sure to click the like button. Tell me what you think about it in the comments. I also have some other great projects right over here, so make sure you check those out. Otherwise, have fun building.